we are going to create a stone shooter with some delay. So we are going to use a coroutine. So let us see what are we going to achieve. So you can see we've got some stones to be shooted. We've got some particle effects added to it. And let me click on the stone shooter object. So you can see we've got a slider to decide the shooting delay. If I decrease it, then we will have plenty of stones shooted so that our scene gets filled in with the fire. Okay, so let's get into it. You can download this stone sprite and the stone prefab from the Google Drive. The link is below. I've created this fire effect on this stone prefab, so you can use it wherever you want to. And the whole package with the whole scene will be available in this Google Drive as well, so you can grab it if you want. Okay, so what do we have on the scene? I've got some stone shooter object that we will shoot those stones from. And I've got only transform component as always and stone shooter script attached to it, and that's it. I've got a ground made only of box collider 2D so that those stones can collide with. And as a prefab, it's already prepared, but if you want to make it on your own, then I've just added a sprite renderer to it with some sprite that I created in Inkspace. I've got the box collider 2D on it, and I've got the stone script and rigid body 2D with gravity scale set to 1, and of course some particle system. Okay, so let's start with our stone really, because we need to have it done so that we can shoot it. So what do we need with our stone? It has to get some force to be shooted and some direction. So let's create this vector 3 that will be responsible for the direction first. So let's create vector 3 and call it shooting direction. Shooting. We can make a reference to our rigid body components straight away. So let's say rigid body 2D RB. And then inside the start method, just make a reference to it. So rigid body and assign get component, rigid body and parentheses. So now we can assign some value to our vector 3 that we defined above. So let's use its name. So shooting direction. Let's create new vector 3, and here we need to specify some directions we want to use. So let's move back to Unity. We are on the left side of our screen, so we want to shoot to the right and a bit up, because if we don't use some up value, then it will go like straight down, which probably is not what we want. So we have to add some positive values on X and positive values on Y. So let's get back to the code and use, for example, like 6F. Of course, this is all about trials and errors to get a good value. So I'll use 6F for X and 1F for Y at the moment and 0 for the Z. I'll save it, and the last thing we need to do is to add some force to this stone. So RB, and we'll use add force method, and inside, as you can see, we need to specify the vector 2 force. And we've made this shooting direction vector, so we can use it. So just call it shooting direction, and after it we need to use a force mode 2D. So let's type it, force mode 2D, and after the dot we will just use impulse, because we want to add this force just one time, like if this was in the catapult. So the catapult just adds some force to the stone, and after it no force is applied to it anymore. So we are doing the same thing. Just save it and let's go back to Unity. We'll just try this out. Just put our stone prefab to the hierarchy and move it to the left. We'll see if it goes to the right in a good direction, and it goes something like that. So this is looking good. Let's get rid of it. and later on we'll change those values. Let's make the functionality first. So now we have to get into the stone shooter, really. Let's open the script, stone shooter, and here, maybe let me clean this up a bit. We need to make a reference to our prefab first, so let's make it a serialized field, and we need to create a game object and call it stone prefab. Let's go down and we have to create a new method. This method needs to have some delay because we want to shoot those stones in some interval, time interval. So we want to shoot it either every 1 second or every 2 seconds or so on. We'll decide about this later, but we need to create something to allow us to change this time period. And in order to do it, we can use something called coroutines or IEnumerator. So let's do it. We just call it IEnumerator and just give it a name, like shoot. So this is pretty much like standard method or function. We just add a type of IEnumerator to it, and then just the parentheses and the curly brackets. Inside, because this is IEnumerator, we need to return something. And this is called yield return new wait for seconds. Wait for seconds, and inside we specify how many seconds it need to pass in order to return it. And we want to wait like 2 seconds for now. So everything is fine now. This line like yield return new wait for seconds is a standard one. We'll use it quite a lot with IEnumerator. So just keep that in mind. So what we want to do in this method. So first of all, we want to instantiate our prefab. We've done it before. So just create a new game object, call it maybe just a stone, and assign instantiate method to it. Inside we need this stone prefab, so just call it stone prefab. Now we need to add some place or some spot that we want to instantiate from. We want to instantiate from the stone shooter, so just put transform and position. And we don't need to change rotation, so just put quaternion identity, semicolon at the end, and that would be it for now. Let's call this IEnumerator method from the start. So it will start shooting the stones once the play button is pressed. In order to call this function, we'll do it a bit differently, because normally we would just use this name like shoot and that's it. But when we are dealing with IEnumerators, we need to call it by StartCoroutine. So just type StartCoroutine, and inside the parentheses we need to add a name of that IEnumerator, which is shoot. It's not going to work as we want it to work yet. Let's play, and as you can see we get some exception. The variable stone prefab has not been assigned, so straight away we know that we should click on the stone shooter and assign the prefab to it. So just do it and press play again, and you can see that one stone was shooted, but we want it to be shooting all the time. So why it's not shooting all the time? Let's go back to the code, and as you can see our method is instantiating one object and then waits for 2 seconds, but nothing happens after it. It just, instantiate, wait, and that's it. So after it waits 2 seconds, we want to call this method again. So after it waited, let's just call it one more time, and it will keep calling itself. So we are creating some kind of recursive method that is calling itself from within all the time, all over again. Start the game again, and now as you can see we've got one stone, second one, third one, and we'll get more of them every 2 seconds. So how to decide about the time? We want to get this slider in our inspector so we can decide how fast they need to be instantiated. So in order to do it, we need to create a new variable and we will call it stone shooting delay. So let's do it. We want to set inspector, so we have to make it serialized field. It will be of type float and the name of it is stone shooting delay, and assign some starting value to it, which might be 2f. So now instead of this 2f in here, we just pass our variable. So just copy it and paste it there. So at the moment this is working exactly the same as it did before. Let me open Unity to show you this value in here. You can change it, but we don't want to change it like that. We want to have this slider. So let's go back. And in order to create this slider, we need to add some property to it. And we open the square brackets and we call it a range. And inside we'll add parentheses. And now we have to provide float min and float max. So I think we will start from point F. And the max value, let's put on 4. So we can choose any value between half and the 4. So let's go back to Unity and see if that works, and it is. So let's press play, and now we get every instance every 2 seconds. So let's increase this value, or actually decrease the delay, so it will increase the number of stones that are being instantiated, and they are. So this is working pretty good. When we are instantiating new objects, they are being shooted in exactly the same spot with the same direction, and I would like to make it a bit random. So let's open our stone, and here instead of using these fixed numbers, I want to use some random numbers. So let's create some random number variable. Let's call it int, or maybe we can use a float really. So let's use a float, and it will be rand x and assigned random range to it. And we want to get the values between maybe 5f and 8f. And we want to do the same thing with the y. So I will just duplicate this line by pressing Shift Alt and arrow down. I'll change the name of it to y. And here I will choose between maybe 0.6f to 2f. And now we just have to substitute this variable with our fixed values. So do it like so, copy it and paste it, save it, and now we should see that every stone should be shooted with different strength.